Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share. I am an old man now. My hair is white, and my hands are weak. But my heart still remembers everything. One day, I decided to return to my village. It had been many years since I left. I wanted to see it again, just once more. The road to the village was long and quiet. I walked slowly, using my stick to help me. The trees were taller than I remembered, and the air smelled fresh and clean. As I walked, memories came flooding back, my childhood, my family, my friends. When I finally reached the village, my heart felt heavy. The houses were broken. The streets were empty. The fields where we used to play were now full of weeds. It didn't look like the village I remembered. I stood in the middle of the village and closed my eyes. In my mind, I could still hear the laughter of children. I could still see my mother cooking in the kitchen. But when I opened my eyes, everything was gone. I walked to the place where my house used to be. The walls were broken, and the roof was missing. I touched the old stones with my shaking hands, and tears came to my eyes. This was the house where I was born. This was the house where I grew up. As the sun began to set, I sat on the ground. The village was quiet, but my mind was full of memories. I remembered the good days, the happy times. I promised myself I would never forget them. The next morning, I woke up early. The sun was rising, and the sky was painted in pink and gold. I walked around the village again. Every step I took brought back a memory. I saw the old well where we used to collect water. Now it was dry, and there were cracks in the stone. I walked to the school. It used to be a small building when I was a boy. Now it was gone, only the wooden frame was left. I heard my old teacher's voice in my head. She always told us, "Dream big." Her words stayed with me my whole life. Not far from there, I found the market square. It was once the heart of the village. People sold fruits, vegetables, and handmade things. Now it was empty. The ground was covered with dirt and dry leaves. I remembered the laughter, the voices, the smell of fresh food. It felt like all those happy days had been just a dream. I sat on an old bench and looked at the hills. They were still beautiful, green and strong. The hills had not changed, but everything else had. I wondered what happened to the people. Where did they go? Do they ever think about the village like I do? As I sat there, a small bird landed near me. It was white, with black spots on its wings. It sang a soft, sweet song. For a moment, I felt peace. The bird reminded me that life goes on, even when everything changes. I stayed there until the sun rose high in the sky. Then I stood up and kept walking. There was still more to see, more memories to find. My heart felt heavy, but I wanted to remember every part of my village. I walked to the river next. We had spent our summers there as children. We swam, laughed, and played by the water. Now the river was shallow and slow. The trees around it were dry, and their leaves were gone. I sat by the edge and looked into the water. My reflection looked back at me, old and tired. I picked up a small stone and gently threw it into the river. Ripples spread across the water. And in that quiet moment, I smiled, because even though time had changed everything, the memories still lived inside me. The ripples spread across the surface of the water. They reminded me of the days when we used to skip stones as children. My best friend was the champion. He could skip a stone 5 or 6 times. I smiled at the memory, but the smile slowly faded. Next, I walked to my family's old house. The roof was gone, and the walls were cracked. I stepped inside carefully. The wooden floor creaked under my feet. In the corner, I saw the spot where my mother used to sit and sew clothes. Her old basket filled with thread and needles was still there, dusty and forgotten. In the kitchen, I saw the table where we had shared so many meals. I could almost hear my father's warm voice telling stories while we ate. My chest felt tight. Those beautiful days were gone forever, but they still lived in my heart. I walked to the back of the house and saw the old tree where my sister and I used to play. We had tied a swing to its strongest branch. The swing was gone. But the tree still stood tall and proud. I touched its rough bark and closed my eyes. I could almost hear my sister's laughter echoing in the wind. As I stood there, a soft breeze blew, carrying the scent of the earth. It reminded me of all the good times, but also of everything we had lost. The village was no longer the place I once knew. It was a quiet shadow of its past. But still, it was my home. I walked to the school where we used to learn and play. The building was still standing, but it looked sad and lonely. The windows were broken, and the doors hung open. I stepped inside. The old wooden desks were still there, covered in a thick layer of dust. This was the place where I learned to read and write. I remembered my teacher clearly, the one who always believed in me. She used to say, "You can do great things if you work hard." Her words stayed in my heart for all these years. I could still see her gentle smile and her kind eyes filled with hope. Standing in that silent room made my heart ache. Outside the school, there was a small field. We used to play games there after class. We ran, laughed, sometimes even fought, but we always forgave each other. Now the field was overgrown with tall weeds. It felt smaller than I remembered, as if the years had taken its strength too. I made my way to the village square. It was once the heart of our little world. The market stalls were gone, and the benches were broken. I stood in the middle, closing my eyes and imagining the voices of people buying and selling, the laughter of children running around, and old men sharing stories from the past. There was an old fountain in the center of the square. It was dry now. As a child, I used to toss coins into the water and make wishes, wishes for happiness. For love, for a good life. Looking at the dry fountain, I wondered if any of those wishes had ever come true. The sun began to set, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink. The sunset was beautiful, almost too beautiful for this forgotten village. But it reminded me of something important. Even in the middle of sadness and loss, life still goes on, and as the sun dipped lower, I stood there in silence, grateful for the memories, and strong enough to carry them with me, forever. I walked to the hill just outside the village. From there, I could see everything, the houses, the fields, the empty streets. It was so quiet. Too quiet. I sat down on the grass, resting my hands on my knees. And let my thoughts wander. I remembered the festivals we used to celebrate on this very hill. People from all over the village came together. We sang songs, danced with joy, and shared delicious food. The air was once full of laughter, music, and happiness, but now, the hill felt empty, almost like it missed those joyful days too. In the distance, I saw the old windmill. It used to turn slowly in the wind, making a creaking sound that was part of our daily lives. Now, the blades were broken, and the windmill stood still, like a tired giant that had given up. It made me think about time. How everything changes, no matter how much we want it to stay the same. The stars began to appear in the night sky. I looked up and thought about my family, my parents, my sister, my childhood friends. They were all gone now. I still carried their memories deep inside me, but it wasn't the same. This village had been my connection to them. And seeing it like this, so empty, so broken, was heartbreaking. As the night grew darker, I lit a small candle I had brought with me. I placed it gently on the ground and watched the flame dance in the soft breeze. It was just a tiny light, but it brought me comfort. It felt like I was honoring the past, the people, the place, the love that had shaped my life. Sitting there, I realized something important. Even though the village was in ruins, it was still part of me. The memories, both happy and sad, were mine to carry. They had made me who I am. I took a deep breath, letting the cool night air fill my lungs, and I made a promise to myself, I would never forget. The next morning, I walked through the village one last time. The sunlight touched the broken walls and empty streets, covering them in a soft golden glow. It felt like the village was saying goodbye to me. Just as I was saying goodbye to it, I stood in front of my childhood home. The roof was gone, and the walls were cracked, but in my mind, it looked just like before. I could hear my mother's laughter, smell the bread she baked, and feel the warmth of my father's hugs. Those memories brought both pain and peace to my heart. Before leaving, I went to the small well in the center of the village. It was dry now, but when I was a boy, it was the heart of our community. People gathered there every morning, filling their buckets and sharing the latest news. I ran my fingers over the stone edge and whispered a quiet thank you, for the water, for the life, and for all the memories. I carried a small bag of soil with me, soil from the garden my father had planted many years ago. I wanted to take a part of the village with me, a piece of its soul, so I would never feel too far from home. As I walked away, I turned back one last time. From a distance, the village looked small, surrounded by hills and trees. It felt like it was part of the earth, timeless and eternal. Even in silence, it still had a soul. I knew I couldn't change the past, but I could carry its lessons and its love with me. The village had taught me strength, kindness, and the value of memories. I closed my eyes, whispered a prayer, and let my tears fall. The village was gone, but it would live forever in my heart. And as I walked into the future, I carried its spirit with me, knowing that it had shaped the person I had become.